right, and I think we are live. So we already got 20 people on the stream. So thank you guys for joining us for the initial college football playoff rankings show coming out just here in a few minutes. If you're like me, you're watching the tail end of this Kansas and Duke game. Phenomenal game. Number 3 team in the country, number 4 team in the country. And we've got Duke leading by a point right now with about 50 seconds left. So we're going to catch the end of this game. Hopefully, it does not go to overtime. Fingers crossed, because that, of course, would delay our rankings just a little while longer. And then we will be looking at the rankings at the same time you guys are. Just like the analysts that are going to be on TV tonight, just like everybody else across the country, we'll all be getting our first look at the initial set of college football playoff rankings entering 2019, entering Week 11. So, yes, LSU fan, please do not go into overtime. 64-63 Duke leads. I've got a feeling that it's not, but if so, we can pass some time. We got plenty to talk about. So this is the first for us, guys. We're really pumped. We're glad to be back. We're glad to be back on the live streams. It's been a long time. It's been a very, very busy semester here. Of course, we've been able to bring you content, but we have not been able to do as many live streams as we have hoped. We're glad to be back, and you can guarantee that we will be doing this every single Tuesday. Every Tuesday, we will be on here watching the rankings with you live, breaking down these rankings. So that's our plan for the rest of the year. If you've seen already, you know that we released our top 25 just yesterday. We released our top 25, and our top 4 right now is LSU at number 1, Ohio State at number 2, Alabama at 3, and Clemson at 4. So it'll be really interesting to see if the committee sticks with that. Sticks with those top 4 teams, maybe not the right order, but at least has the same top 4 teams, or maybe Penn State slips in there. Maybe Georgia for some slips in there. I don't think I'd go that far with the Bulldogs, but there is a chance that those top 4 teams will be switched up a little bit, or might not even be that at all. Let's go through who do we have in the chat right now. Joe, just Joe, glad to have you. Eli, always good to have you as well. Stephen Smith. And Cyclone Mitch, of course, I am glad to have you here, glad to have you back. And like he said, make sure to hit that like button, guys. Happy to see all 31 of you right now. So super pumped to have you guys with us. Very historic day across the board. I'm going to throw this on just a little bit. Gets a little extra light right here. Looks pretty dark on my end. All right, perfect. See if that helps a little bit. So Johnny Bay is good to have you. LSU fan 101. And Michael Buck saying Texas is back. Texas won't even be ranked in the initial rankings. And then, of course, Penn State should be number 1. And Penn State, I do think, has a very strong case of being in the top 4 when they're released here in a few minutes. Quality wins over Pittsburgh and Iowa and Michigan State. And another great opportunity to add to that Saturday morning when they take on Minnesota on the road. So Penn State should. I have them at number 5 right now. I've got them at 5. But I could see maybe the committee dropping Clemson or even Alabama to number 4 and Penn State cracking that top 4. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do here. All right, so we've got a couple seconds left in this Duke-Kansas game. Duke up by 3 right now. I'm sure many of you guys are watching it. But Duke up by 3 with 26 seconds left. Hopefully Kansas will miss their shot. Potential game-tying three-pointer here. Let's see what happens. Let's get to these rankings. And then once the rankings are over, we're, of course, going to break it down. Live stream won't end right then. Let's see what they got. Kansas, they're going to go for a quick 2. And out of bounds, 14 seconds left. They're definitely going to go for a 3. Legalized Quack, good to have you. You're watching that Toledo-Kent State game. If you've got money on it, I would. Otherwise, I definitely wouldn't be watching it. But, hey, football is football, though. Football is football. So, pretty nice stuff. Got to take what you can get. Here we go, Kansas right now, trying to see if they can tie it up. Quick 2. It's over. We're done. We're done. Foul with 4 seconds left, 3-point game. Yep, I think we're good, guys. So rankings coming up here in a second. Young Black Shirt Warrior, thank you very much. Thank you so much, guys. As always, many of you know, the Super Chat is always on. Always on. We encourage that. We appreciate that more than you know. Every little bit helps. So, Young Black Shirt Warrior, thank you so much for that. Like I said, really, really do appreciate it. Tiger Raven 18, go Clemson Tigers. Glad to have you with us, by the way. Clemson should be at least in the top 5. Would be surprised if they fall anywhere lower. Vaughn Hook, I agree that Minnesota is facing their biggest test against Penn State, no doubt in my mind. Look, Penn State, one of the best teams in the country. Minnesota has been one of the biggest surprise teams in the country. But if you watched our previous video today about our Week 11 predictions, you heard me say that the Big Ten teams that Minnesota has defeated have a combined record of 17-28. That's not good. And that's not, like, you can't affect that. That's not Minnesota's fault. Those are conference teams that they have to play. And Minnesota did what a good team should do, and they took care of business. They annihilated everybody. Their best win, though, is probably Purdue, which they beat by 7, or maybe Illinois, because the Fighting Illini are trending up. But Minnesota, this is their biggest test, their first game against a ranked team. I'm really curious to see how they show up against one of the best defenses in the country in Penn State. An LSU fan saying that that was what cost Minnesota game day. I don't even know if that's what did it. I could not imagine College game day passing up the opportunity to go to Alabama for number 1 LSU and number 2 Alabama, at least in the AP poll. Still one of the games of the century, if you want to call it that. Although I'm beginning to wonder, how many games of the century can we have, guys? We're about to be just 20 years into the century, and we've already had about 5 or 6 of them. So, good Lord, I don't know what qualifies as a game of the century anymore. Duke up 4 with 4 seconds. We are coming to the rankings here momentarily. And since they got a late start, they should jump straight into it. Hopefully none of this small talk. Let's jump right into it. I'm pumped for it. 3%er, does Michigan have a chance against Ohio State this year? And that's coming from a Penn State fan. Man, I tell you what, I mean, any given Saturday, man, any given Saturday, a team has the opportunity to beat somebody. Michigan is peaking at the right time. They're playing well at the right time. Something that is, thanks in at the buzzer, something that has really impressed me. But I don't know if anybody can beat Ohio State this year, at least in the regular season. I do not know. Do not think they can. Ohio State has one of the best defenses in the country. Chase Young, a legitimate Heisman contender. Justin Fields and J.K. Dobbins, an elite 1-2 punch. I really don't know if that's going to be the case. So Michigan, I think, will hang with them. I don't think it's going to be as bad as it was last year, where it was like 62-39, something like that. But I don't think Michigan can beat Ohio State this year. Even though as a Penn State fan, that would benefit you if Penn State were to fall to Ohio State. We'd definitely have some tie-breaking scenarios in there for who wins the Eastern Division. And Cyclone Mitch is right. And once again, I really appreciate you for pumping that. We've got 54 viewers. I actually think that's the most we've ever had at one time on a live stream. And obviously, it's a big night to have it. So hit that like button, guys. We appreciate that more than you know as well. That helps us out more than you guys know. The analytics, liking this video helps others find our channel. It helps others find our videos. So hitting that like button does a lot. The comments help out a lot. So help us out here, guys. And we've got the TV going. Should be popping up any second now. Eli, for right now, we are not doing a call-in show today. Right now, I want to get through these rankings. I want to talk about them. We might potentially have a call-in show later this week, certainly next week, so we can definitely talk about it. I know that's what everybody's been hoping for, but we're still going to be taking your questions and comments through the chat tonight as we're working through here. Vaughn Hook, will Rutgers be better next season? Man, I tell you what, for Comic Dude 45 and for DM and for everybody like that, I sure hope so. Rutgers is one of the most intriguing schools this year. I'm one of the intriguing coaching hires this year. I'm really interested to see who they land. You know, they fire Chris Ash. Who are they going to bring in? Who's going to be the next head coach for Rutgers? There's rumors that it would be Joe Moorhead, of course, moving from Mississippi State back to Rutgers, back into that northeastern part of the country. There's rumors that it could be Butch Jones. So I'm really interested to see who takes over in New Jersey for the Scarlet Knights. But a school rich with history, rich with tradition, that have not been at an elite level in a very long time. That's kind of what Common Dude's saying. It's more desirable than people are led to believe. Some people don't want to have to jump in and try to rebuild a place like that, but I know I certainly would. I would certainly take the opportunity to do that. Will Burrow has joined the chat. Of course, we all remember Will Burrow from a couple of videos ago. Will, I don't think Texas is going to be ranked. I will be shocked if Texas is ranked as a 5-3 team. 2 quality losses, sure, but the TCU one, inexcusable. And I did hear that I think that was more of just a joke more than anything about the Last Chance U coach going over to Florida State. But Florida State has surprised me before. It surprised me when they hired Willie Taggart, which was obviously an ultimate failure. And if they hire him from Last Chance U, it will be ultimate failure as well. Cole Whitman, can Baylor beat Oklahoma? That's coming from an Oklahoma State fan. Well, absolutely they can. Baylor absolutely can beat Oklahoma because Oklahoma has shown us that they are beatable. Man, we're going to a commercial break. What a shame. But Oklahoma has been beatable. Kansas State showed us that. Baylor annihilated Kansas State at Kansas State. Oklahoma has to travel to Baylor. Texas has to travel to Baylor. And while Baylor has not been as impressive, 8-0, very impressive, but like the win against West Virginia wasn't that great. The wins against Oklahoma State and Kansas State were. So I do think that they can do it. I'm just really curious to see if Baylor can contain Jalen Hurts. If you watched the game last year, you saw that Baylor put up 33 points against Oklahoma, but they allowed them to score 66, doubled the score, and could not stop Kyler Murray. So it's going to be really interesting to see if they can do that this year. Can they stop a dual-threat quarterback in Jalen Hurts? Well, with home field advantage, and if Baylor gets past TCU, I have a pretty good feeling game day is going to be there. Let's see, Jeff Wilson. Come on, man! I thought we were cool. Of course, that we smile on occasion. Now I get people that talk to me about that all the time. Say something along the lines of robotic. Is what people have told me. But yes, of course, Jeff, I hope you're doing well. Glad to see you. It's been a while since I've seen your comments. It's been a while since we've talked, but yes, of course. And yes, Cyclone Mitch, I'm promoting body armor today. Strawberry banana is absolutely the best way to go. Best body armor out there, and that is undisputed. All right, let's see who else we've got out here. Stephen Smith, what do I think about Oklahoma's chances about making the playoff after falling to Kansas State? I tell you what, that's one of the teams, and I've got my list of rankings here. I'm going to be filling them in as we see these new rankings, but I'm really interested to see where Oklahoma is ranked in these initial rankings. I have them personally at number 10. I think they are the 10th best team in the country right now after that loss to Kansas State. I don't see the committee ranking them outside of the top 10 because they did beat Texas, and I know Texas isn't looking as good and has not been as good as people thought they were going to be, but I think that's a quality win. Oklahoma, outside of the Kansas State game, a game that they only lost by 7 after trailing by like 25, I do think that they are still one of the top teams in the country. And keep in mind, Oklahoma lost last year to Texas, ran the table the rest of the way, and still got in as the 4th team in the playoff. They can do it again. Kansas State at Kansas State, clearly not a bad team because they're continuing to win. Oklahoma did it last year. They can do it again, but they have to win out, and they have to win out convincingly. That would include a win on the road against a good Baylor team. That would include a win in the Big 12 championship against maybe Baylor again. Maybe it would be Texas. A win over a solid Oklahoma State team. So a lot of questions to be asked for Oklahoma. I'm really curious to see where they are ranked here in a few minutes. Vaughn Hook, where will Oregon be ranked? I've got the Ducks at number 7. I'm sure Legalized Quack would love to hear that. Either 6th or 7th. I would be surprised if Oregon's anywhere less than that because, like he said, the loss to Auburn looks better than a loss to Kansas State. I would agree with that because while I have Kansas State at 21st, I do have Auburn at number 13. Auburn, a quality SEC opponent for Oregon. So I don't really see Oregon dropping outside of the top 7. Eli, you think Baylor and Minnesota should be ranked 6 and 7 since they're undefeated? That's tough for me. I'm in a tough position with that, guys. I'm not buying into Minnesota yet. I just can't do it. They're 8-0, and it's really impressive. PJ Fleck just signed a contract extension, very well deserved. But they haven't played anybody yet. Look at their first 3 games. I know that was a long time ago, but their first 3 games, they struggled against inferior opponents in the Big Ten. They thrived, but they got Penn State, Iowa, and Wisconsin coming up. Let's see how they do in those 3 games. They go 2-1 or 3-0 in those games, they definitely earn my respect and make me believe they deserve to be a top 25 contender and a Big Ten title contender, and maybe for some of these, a college football playoff contender. But if they lose all 3 of those games or go 1-2, then I think that maybe it wasn't meant to be. Maybe it was just the way the schedule was laid out. All right, so we've got the playoff committee down in Grapevine, Texas. Obviously, they ranked those teams yesterday, as we all know. And, of course, we're just seeing the rankings for the first time today. Ryan Mell, good to see you. Ryan McCormick as well. Good to have you guys also. So, good to see you guys. Like I said, it's been a long time since we've had a live stream, so I'm getting to see all of you guys once again. So, Dontron plays. Where will Florida be ranked? I have the Gators at 11th. I have Florida at 11. Would not be surprised to see Florida crack the top 10 still, but their 2 losses are to Georgia and LSU. Not bad. Not bad losses at all. But the loss to Georgia looked better than it really was. And that is the problem. Looked better than it was. Questionable calls, both officiating and coaching-wise. Poor third down conversions. Poor third down defense. If Florida doesn't play just the slightest bit of defense, Georgia wins that game by 21 or more. If Florida does not hold Georgia to field goals when they were in the red zone, it's a blowout, and they drop way farther down in these rankings. So Florida's still ranked in the top 15, probably top 12. But I think their playoff hopes are just about done, unless by some miracle they can slip back into the SEC championship game, assuming Georgia were to slip up to Auburn and maybe somewhere else. All right, guys, we've got the rankings on right now. We got a lot of group of 5 in the first 4. Memphis at 21st, SMU at 25, Navy at 24, Oklahoma State at 23, Boise State at 22, and Memphis at 21. So plenty of group of 5 teams in these first 4. Very interesting to see the race that we have coming. I really don't agree with Memphis at 21st at all. Way too low. We'll address that here in a little bit. We've got Cincinnati, so another group of 5 team coming in at 20. Wake Forest at 19. Iowa, 18. Minnesota, much lower at 17. Keep in mind, I had them at 15, was not buying into the hype. So the Golden Gophers down as far as 17th. And Kansas State at number 16 in the country. Number 16 in the country. High for the Wildcats, who great win over Oklahoma. Great win over Kansas, even though they're not that elite. But they lost to Oklahoma State, who's ranked here, already a 2-loss team. Very, very interesting to see Chris Klieman and his squad that high. But Minnesota is the one that stands out to me in these next 4 right here, sitting at number 17. We've got Notre Dame at 15th. Remember, I had them at number 14. Michigan at 14, obviously showing that head-to-head does, in fact, matter because they annihilated the Fighting Irish. Wisconsin at number 13. Do not agree with that, and absolutely do not agree with Baylor at number 12. That is ridiculous. Baylor at 12, below Auburn, sitting at number 11. Absolutely ridiculous. No respect for Baylor here. I had them at number 9. Florida at 10. So, like we said, we expected Florida to remain in the top 12. We thought they'd be around 10th or 11th. Still a little angry about that Baylor pick there. Oklahoma at 9. So, Oklahoma, we had them at 10. But Oklahoma right now sitting at 9. Playoff hope still intact. Utah at 8. Which I would assume that Oregon or Georgia will be next at number 7. More than likely Oregon. But some believe that Oregon have a better resume than the Bulldogs as of right now. Oregon at 7, which means Georgia should be number 6. That really should be undisputed. So we know who's going to be in the next top 6 here. should be Georgia. Then I would assume Penn State, Clemson, or Alabama coming in at number 5 after that, and then the top 4. But right now, guys, biggest thing that surprised me is the amount of group of 5 teams that are so low right there. SMU barely remaining in the top 25. Navy coming in at 24. Boise State, very, very low at 22nd. And Memphis, more than anything, guys. Memphis, a team that's just a one-loss team, losing to Temple. And they're 21st, despite beating SMU, who was 8-0. And, guys, once again, you have to see here that what happens in the AP poll does not matter with these college football playoff rankings. And once again, you're seeing some drastic changes here. We mentioned that in our last video, how UCF back in the AP poll was so high, number 8 in the country, and when they were releasing the playoff rankings, they were down to number 15 or 16 due to strength of schedule and quality of wins and opponents. So that does play a major factor here. All right, so we're going to take a look at the top 6. Georgia, no surprise, coming in at 6. We knew they weren't going to crack anything higher than that. At least they shouldn't have. Emperor of Rome, good to see you. I am extremely angry about Baylor, and we will talk about that here in a second. We're going to, like I said, we're going to break down all of these rankings. We're writing them down right now so we can have them to look at here in a minute. But Georgia coming in at number 6. I would assume Penn State or Clemson at number 5. I don't imagine Alabama getting dropped out of the top 4. So Clemson down to number 5, which means that Penn State is in the top 4. And there they are, Nittany Lions coming in with the 4th spot in the college football playoff rankings. Very well deserved. We mentioned the amount of quality wins they have. Pittsburgh, Michigan, Michigan State, guys like that, Iowa. So Penn State getting in there. Clemson's strength of schedule, obviously nothing compared to what Penn State has faced so far this season. I would assume number 3 would be Alabama. And then it was going to be a toss-up between Ohio State and LSU for the first spot. And I would assume that spot for me would go to LSU just based on the wins that they have piled up. I would assume that would be LSU's to lose right now with the wins against Texas, Florida, and Auburn, 2 of which, obviously, the playoff committee thinks very highly of, with Florida at 10 and Auburn at number 11. So they're talking about it right now. I'm sorry we don't have any audio for this, but Alabama going to come in at number 3, and then we should have LSU at 1 and Ohio State at number 2. That's how I would have it. So automatically you are seeing some major shakeups in these top 25 polls, and shockingly enough, we have Ohio State at number 1 and LSU at 2. Shocking for some, not shocking for others. So there you have it, guys. There is your initial college football playoff top 25 as we enter week 11. We have a lot to cover. And a lot of discrepancies. So let's just jump right to it. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this off here in a second. We don't want to hear what these guys have to say, what Kirk and Joey and Jesse and Reese have to say, because very shocked. Very, very shocked. So let's jump right into it. We'll start up here with the top 10 and then work our way down with the other discrepancies that we have. Ryan, that was my top 3. I actually just flip-flopped LSU and Ohio State. I had LSU at first, and that's where I have my first problem. Johnny, great point. They got the top 3 right. Those 3 teams were in my top 3, but LSU deserves to be the number 1 team in the country, guys. Not to dog on Ohio State. Ohio State, I have said repeatedly that I believe the Buckeyes are one of the best teams in the country. I think they're the most sound team in the country because of their offense and their defense. Better defense than LSU. But LSU's quality of wins, beating Auburn, beating Florida, beating Texas, running the table the rest of the way. Ohio State has taken care of business, yes, but who have they beaten outside of maybe who? Michigan State, who's not even ranked in the top 25? I don't agree with that at all. LSU should be 1. Ohio State should be 2. Bama at 3. We have Penn State at number 4 based on these rankings. And I'm okay with that. I had Clemson at 4, but that was a toss-up for me. Penn State coming in at 4th, quality wins. They deserve to be in the top 4 right now. A chance to improve that resume, something that they already have. So a major reason I think they're 4th ahead of Clemson right now is because of their strength of schedule and the quality of wins that they have. But before we got down, I'm reading these comments here about 2 of the most intriguing teams entering these rankings, Baylor and Minnesota. And guys, I am going to be very, very quick to say that Baylor absolutely got snubbed big time. Baylor more so than Minnesota. That is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous that the committee has ranked Baylor 12th and not in the top 10, below a team like Auburn, below a team like Florida, below a team like Oklahoma, who is very solid. Yes, a team that we had at number 10, but still lost, and Baylor is the lone undefeated team in the Big 12. Now, once again, I get strength of schedule plays a factor, and I get that quality of wins plays a factor, but guys, if the College Football Playoff Committee wants to bank it off of and base these rankings off of their wins against the teams they're going to rank, correct me if I'm wrong, but as I'm scanning through their new top 25, Oklahoma has not beaten anybody in their top 25. Oklahoma has yet to beat anybody in the playoff committee's top 25. They beat Texas. Texas is now 5-3, not even ranked. Baylor has beaten Oklahoma State very convincingly on the road. They're number 23 in these new rankings. And they beat Kansas State convincingly on the road. And the Wildcats are number 16 in the playoff committee's rankings. So this, guys, is once again why the College Football Playoff Committee is so flawed. And once again why, for me, I disagree with them just about every single week. I would have loved to have known what was going on in that room down in Grapevine, Texas, when they decided to rank Baylor. But rank them behind Oklahoma, that's fine. But you do not rank them behind a 2-loss Florida team and a 2-loss Auburn team. Baylor is playing some very, very solid football. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous by the committee. Running through the rest, we don't disagree with Georgia coming in at number 6. That's fine. Oregon and Utah, we actually had at 7 and 8 as well. We had Oklahoma at 10th. They came in at 9th. We had Florida at 11th. They came in at number 10. We had Auburn at 11th, or we had Auburn at 13. They come in at 11th. So within the top 12, we had just about all those teams in there. They were just mixed up a little bit. They were just flip-flopped a little bit. But Baylor is the one that sticks out more to me. The playoff committee absolutely snubbed them. I don't know what they want, what more they want out of Baylor this week and this year. I don't know what more they want out of the Bears and Matt Rule. And I'm going to do some digging on that. I'll make sure to get you guys some answers. I'm not sure if you know this, but the Arkansas State athletic director is on the College Football Playoff Committee. So I will make sure to get you all some answers very, very soon. Because this is, quite honestly, is quite unacceptable. Quite unacceptable. Now, Minnesota down at number 17, I don't have a problem with. I ranked Minnesota at number 15. I ranked Minnesota at number 15. And as I've repeatedly said in our Week 11 predictions, and as I've said here with you guys today, I'm just not fully buying Minnesota right now. If they beat Penn State and the now number 4 team in the country, then I will buy into them. But 17-28 is the combined record of the Big Ten teams they have defeated. If you go back and look at their performances against Georgia Southern, Fresno State, and South Dakota State at the beginning of the season, they were very lackluster. I'm just not buying into Minnesota, and I think 17th is a very appropriate spot for them, despite being undefeated. And don't misunderstand me when I'm barking about Baylor and how that we have two lost teams ahead of an undefeated team, and why I think that Minnesota should be higher, because once again Baylor has beaten quality opponents. 2 teams that the committee decided to rank And Minnesota has not. Minnesota has not played anybody. So very shocking there. I'm going to take some of your questions and comments real quick, and then we'll work our way down to the rest of these rankings. In particular, I want to take a look at the group of 5 teams because obviously we know that there's going to be a very tight race for trying to fight for that New Year's Six bowl spot. So we will definitely take a look at that in a second. But I want to go through some of your questions and comments. And once again, I will make sure to get answers for you guys here within the next few weeks, especially over the course of the remaining playoff selection shows and playoff ranking shows, because these rankings don't make any sense. These rankings do not make any sense. So let's take a look here. Let's take a look here. The Dino ET, yes, Baylor has played plenty of people, as we mentioned, and they've yet to play Oklahoma and Texas, so 2 quality wins they can get there. But based from the committee's rankings, they have defeated 23rd ranked Oklahoma State and 16th ranked Kansas State, both on the road. And the committee definitely is supposed to put emphasis and stock into the way teams perform on the road, especially if you're able to go on the road and get a win over those opponents. They're supposed to put some stock into that, and they clearly have not done that with Baylor. I would just personally like to know what the committee was thinking, ranking Florida and Auburn above Baylor. Because quite frankly, who have they beaten? Florida beat Auburn, and once again, you're seeing the head-to-head come into play here. We see that Michigan is ranked ahead of Notre Dame, and that's rightfully so because Michigan defeated Notre Dame. And we see Florida above Auburn because Florida defeated Auburn in the regular season. But who has Auburn beaten other than Oregon? They beat Oregon in the regular season, the first week of the season. That's great. Oregon is sitting at number 7 right now. But outside of that, who has Auburn taking care of business with? They were 2-loss team to Florida and LSU. They beat Ole Miss by 6. That's nothing spectacular. They beat Texas A&M, a team that's not ranked, a team that's been majorly disappointing. They beat Arkansas. They beat Mississippi State. I just don't understand what they're starting. And once again, not hating on Auburn, but don't think that the Tigers should be above Baylor. Same can be said for Florida. The win over Auburn's great. Ranked Baylor at 10th and Florida at 11th. That's fine by me. Baylor behind Oklahoma's fine. Behind 2 SEC squads like that, unacceptable. That's my biggest takeaway today is Baylor being ranked so low. So I'd like to see what everybody else has to say here. Now, and obviously right now, guys, it's only the first playoff rankings show. If we're already getting questions and comments about expanding the playoff, something that I am a major supporter for. I am a huge supporter of expanding the college football playoff. I personally do not believe that it should be a 4-team playoff. I don't feel like that's much of a playoff at all. Is it better than the BCS system in the sense that you just take the number 1, number 2 teams in the country? Yes. The reason we have a playoff committee, guys, and the reason we have a playoff is because of what happened 8 years ago when Alabama and LSU somehow met up in the national championship game despite Alabama losing to LSU in the regular season and not even winning their conference championship game. That gave the cause for the college football playoff, and I think it's done a better job of that. But I do think it should expand to at least 8. And so I was seeing questions here like Legalized Quack asking or saying he'd like to see the playoff expanded, but I really like how each game matters in the regular season. And that's you and Johnny Bays were both saying that a lot of people here in these comment sections are really supporting and are actually paying attention to how much the regular season matters. Every game counts. And you're seeing that now more and more with programs scheduling better out-of-conference games because, once again, you can't change the way the teams in your conference play. You know, you got some bad teams in the conference, you got to play them. It's not your fault they're bad, but you can change who you schedule in the out-of-conference. You want to schedule 2 FCS teams to get some easy wins, that's fine. But guess what? Your strength of schedule is going to go way down, which if you go undefeated or you go 11-1, could end up hurting your chances at making the playoffs. So it's a risk that you're willing to take. Eli, thoughts on a 16-team playoff where every conference champion gets an automatic bid? I'm not fully for automatic bids. I'm not entirely for because look, guys, look at what happened last year. Talk about automatic bids. So for some of these schools, it is an automatic bid. If you're the SEC champion, undefeated, or maybe even one loss, you're almost a lock to get into the playoffs. Same for Big Ten, same for a lot of these Power 5 conferences. Not all, but a lot. But you take a team like last year, say Louisiana had defeated Appalachian State in the Sun Belt Conference Championship game. Louisiana would have slipped into the playoff. Would they have been the 16 seed? Yes. Would they have gotten killed by who was number 1 last year? Alabama? Yes. But they would have been taking away a spot from someone that maybe was a little more deserving. And I get there are not 16 conferences, so I get you would have automatic bids and then a bunch of at-large. What would it be? Eight automatic bids and 8 at-larges. They do that for the NCAA tournament. They do that in college basketball where they get automatic bids if you win your conference, and then you have some at-larges. I think that works great for a sport that has way more teams than college football. They don't have 130 teams in college basketball. They have way more, and they have way more conferences. So for that, I agree. But for football, I just don't know if I agree. I fully agree with that. Definitely would make for an interesting bracket, though, nonetheless. But I just don't know if I fully agree with that. Emperor of Rome, I hate this. There are 130 college football teams and only 4 playoff spots. If there was 12 or 16 spots, this wouldn't be a problem. I know it's controversial, but that is the truth. And that's kind of what we're talking about right here with expansion, that we believe it needs to happen. And that's the thing. Every year, guys, you're gonna deal with people that are gonna be left out. That's just the fact of the matter. You make a 12-team playoff. Well, the teams that are 13th and 14th are gonna be mad they didn't make it. You do 16, the guys that are 17th and 18th are gonna get upset because. So look, regardless of how wide you make the playoff, someone's going to get left out. Someone's going to get their feelings hurt. So you got to draw the line somewhere. That line just doesn't need to be 4. It needs to be at least 8, if not maybe 12. We got our man Britt Hall on the line here. Let me see what he says. I thought I saw him. Maybe not. Expanding the playoffs means you're making these kids play either longer schedule or a packed schedule. Anything over an 8-team playoff would be impractical. Maybe in a sense. But, there's arguments that if you expand the playoffs to 8, 12, 16, however you want to do it, you just shave off some of those pointless games because every team plays at least one FCS opponent. Most teams play an FCS opponent or a very weaker group of 5 opponent to try to get an easy win. If you take those games away and you play a more, you have 4 non-conference games for most teams. 4 non-conference. So cut that in half. 2 non-conference games. Run your conference schedule. You still have your bowl games. You still have your playoff, but it's expanded. That is something that could be taken into consideration. Because I know that there are not a lot of people out there that enjoy watching Alabama play the Citadel or Georgia play Murray State or something like that. I think that's kind of that's the way I like to look at it. Looking through here, Michael Buck was on the line. I saw a couple questions from him as well, or at least comments. Facetious comments. I like Portland State to be in the top 15, and Arkansas is going to go to the Natty next year under Chad Morris. That is certainly a conversation for another time when my blood pressure isn't as high as it already is. Stephen Smith, if Texas doesn't make the Big 12 Conference Championship, who do you think will be in it with Oklahoma? Hard to say, but if Texas doesn't, I'd say Baylor right now. Even if Baylor loses to Oklahoma in the regular season, and that's their lone loss, Baylor still makes the conference championship game. So happened last year. Texas fell to Oklahoma, and they met again in the championship game, and I think that could be the same case for Baylor, a team that once again deserves to be higher than they were ranked today. Eli, should Arkansas fire Chad Morris? 100%. 100%. He should have been gone 2 weeks ago. That's just fact of the matter, Eli. He needs to be gone. He needs to get out of town. The guy was never cut out for the SEC West, was never cut out for the SEC. It was a very poor hire by the Arkansas administration. Now, I don't know who they're going to get, but the fact that Florida State fired Willie Taggart less than 2 years into his tenure in Tallahassee makes me believe that Arkansas would be able to do the same thing. And all right, we're going to jump back into these rankings here in a second. I want to take a little bit of a break. Ryan McCormick, last question. What's your take on Oklahoma State at 23? I like it. Personally, Ryan, I like it. I actually had Oklahoma State at 25 in my rankings. So the fact that they're coming in at number 23 just shows that the committee liked them a little bit better than I did. But they've got quality wins. You look at it, Oklahoma State, they beat Kansas State earlier this season, beat them by 13 points. They lost to Baylor. Not a bad loss. They lost to Texas. Not a bad loss. So now I like this Oklahoma State team a lot, and there's a very good chance, like I've said, they can be 8-3 when they meet up against Oklahoma in the season finale. So we've kind of addressed about the first half of these rankings, guys, and obviously the main focal point and the main place we are focusing is on Baylor and how the Bears have been snubbed time and time again, and none bigger than today with the Bears at number 12. We have Michigan at number 14, a team that I had as high as number 12. I think the playoff committee probably taking a little stock into the blowout loss to Wisconsin more than anything else. The loss to Penn State, the number 4 team in the country, the fact that Michigan was in that game till the end, I think that helps their cause a little bit. So Michigan at 14, Kansas State at 16. I'm surprised Kansas State is as high as 16, guys. And I saw a couple of questions there. Josh Pruitt, there's a decent coach available at Arkansas, and his name is the Gridiron Expert. Well, I would just be more than honored to take over the head coaching position at Arkansas or anywhere in the country right now. Don't think I gather enough support for that one, though. So looking through those, we got Kansas State at 16th, guys. They're a 6-2 team. I had them at 21st. Don't think they deserve to be as high as 16. I don't think they deserve to be above the likes of Wake Forest, a 7-1 team that I thought looked like one of the best teams in the country. Not comparing them to Ohio State or LSU, but performance-wise, their win over North Carolina State this past Saturday was unbelievable. So I don't know. I don't think Kansas State should be that high above a team like Wake Forest. And really, guys, you can disagree with me here. You can criticize, and I would love to get your takes on this. But if you look at the rankings, guys, and the top, see, what is this, 20? The top 20, you draw a line there. I just think the playoff committee got extremely lazy. Just going to throw that out there. I think the playoff committee got super lazy. Because if I'm missing, I don't think I'm missing anything, which I'm not. They put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They put 5 group of 5 teams between 20 and 25. 20 and 25, they put in all the group of 5 teams. And if that doesn't sound lazy, then I don't know what is. Because I get that Cincinnati, Memphis, Boise State, Navy, SMU, maybe they're not as good, or maybe they don't deserve to be ranked based on strength of schedule or based on quality of wins or whatever above the likes of Iowa or Minnesota for some, Kansas State. I'm not saying they deserve that. But all I'm saying is that if you put those 2 teams, like let's say take Memphis and Wake Forest, they've already faced off in a bowl game before. Or if you take Memphis and Minnesota, Memphis and Kansas State, and you put them on a neutral site against each other, even SMU for that matter, and you put them on a neutral site, I would bet you at least half the time that group of 5 team would win. I can guarantee you half the time that group of 5 team would win. So I'm looking at this, and I'm just thinking the playoff committee got lazy. They were just like, oh, yeah, Cincinnati, they look pretty good. Well, let's just throw them at 20th because Oklahoma State has 3 losses. They deserve to be in there, yeah, but we'll throw them above there. Memphis, they beat SMU, so we'll rank them above SMU. SMU, they beat TCU, we beat Texas, but we'll throw them in at 25. Barely making the cut here after a narrow loss to Memphis. Navy looks good. We'll throw them above SMU. Oh, we forgot about Boise State. Let's put them in at 22nd. We have them at 23rd, but let's just put them in at 22nd. I think they're extremely lazy. I think they're extremely lazy. I don't like that one bit. Now maybe people disagree with me. I had Cincinnati and Memphis at number 16 and 17, respectfully. And when you rank them the way they did, they have them the way I did. I had Cincinnati above Memphis, who I then had above SMU. But I had SMU above Boise State and Navy still. Boise State and Navy actually above the Mustangs here. But I just think it's absolutely embarrassing what the committee has done tonight. And I don't agree with it. I think they got extremely lazy putting 5 group of 5 teams in from 20th to 25th. I just think that's unacceptable. But if you want to look at it the way it is right now, we have Cincinnati as the highest ranked group of 5 team, which means if the season were to end today, Cincinnati would clinch the lone spot from the group of 5 in a New Year's Six bowl game. So that's great. Of course, we know that, guys, we're sitting here bickering about it, and rightfully so. Obviously, a lot of discrepancies, a lot of criticisms from the playoff committee and among fans and among analysts out there. But the beauty of this is that it's going to change. And it's going to change a lot from now until Selection Sunday in the first week of December. Because if you look at the playoff right now, if the playoffs were to happen right now, you would have Ohio State playing Penn State and LSU playing Alabama. Well, we know that LSU or Alabama is going to lose this Saturday. And we know that just in a few weeks, Ohio State or Penn State is going to lose because they have yet to play each other. We know that in the group of 5 races that Cincinnati or Memphis will lose because they will play each other in the season finale. So there's a lot left to be shook up. There's a lot left to be changed. And obviously this is not set in stone. This is just kind of the benchmark. And things will change, and they will change drastically. They will change in a very big way. The top 4 that we have right now will absolutely not be the top 4 on Selection Sunday because, like I said, half of these teams are going to lose between now and the next 2 weeks. Just the way it is. But I'm absolutely appalled. I'm absolutely if I were on the playoff committee, I would be ashamed what I have just thrown out to the entire nation and to college football fans everywhere. No discrepancies within the top 8. I had all those teams within the top 8. I don't really have discrepancies with one team being ranked above another. If I have a team at 9 and the committee put them at 8, okay, not a big deal. But Baylor is absolutely ridiculous. The group of 5 reputation and representation rankings there is lazy and ridiculous. I don't fully agree with Kansas State at 16, although if they take care of business this week at Texas, maybe I will. They'll be 7-2 and looking very good and looking like Big 12 title contenders. But I do not like these rankings one bit. I do not like these rankings one bit. And I think they are leaving the door open. I think in a way they are leaving the door open for a team like, say, Auburn. Once again, no hate on Auburn, but a team like Auburn who has yet to play Georgia or Alabama to maybe try to slip in there as a 2-loss college football playoff team. Because you look at it, guys, Auburn's number 11 right now. And if they beat Georgia and Alabama, which I don't think they will, I don't think they'll beat both. They might be able to beat one. But if they do, you can make a case for Auburn to slip into the top 4 with their only losses coming to a good LSU team and a good Florida team. Lots of shakeups coming our way over the next few weeks, but these rankings were not good. They were not good. They were not what I expected. I was very disappointed with them. And with that, I think we have covered the entire top 25. And with that, we'll go through the rest of your questions and comments before we start to wrap things up here in a little bit. And those of you can get back to watching the Maction, the midweek Maction, or for some of you watching number 1 Michigan State take on number 2 Kentucky. So I'm going to scroll up here and try to take as many questions as we can. Let's take a look here. Emperor of Rome, my top 5. LSU at 1, Ohio State at 2, Penn State 3, Alabama 4, Baylor at 5. And that's one area, Emperor of Rome, where you and I slightly disagree. I am with you 100% where I agree Baylor should be ranked at least in the top 10. Don't know if I'd put them as high as number 5 over the likes of maybe Clemson or a Georgia or an Oregon. But they do deserve to be in the top 10 at the least. I had them at 9. You can make a case for them to be 8th. But I like LSU, Ohio State, Penn State, and Bama in that top 4. And obviously that is what we have in our top 4 right now. Eli, you're saying Iowa doesn't deserve to be ranked. You could make a case for that. I think Iowa, what are they, just a 2-loss team? I think if they lose to Wisconsin this weekend, so obviously we're going to have a number 13 Wisconsin team taking on number 18 Iowa. There's a chance that Iowa could drop out of the top 25. Haven't really beaten anybody major note. Iowa State was a quality win. An Iowa State team on the road, that's a quality win. A narrow loss to Penn State, not too bad. But outside of that, no huge major signature win, I would say. Lost to Michigan, being held to 3 points. So those are their 2 losses. I like them. I like them in there right now. I think 18th is a respectable spot. I had them at 19. But if they lose to Wisconsin, I think you can make a case to drop them out. Josh Pruitt, is there any chance the Browns even make it to the Super Bowl? Switch gears to the NFL? Absolutely not. Many people thought there was going to be one with the additions of Baker Mayfield, or the emergence of Baker Mayfield, the addition of Odell Beckham. But no, the Browns are, unfortunately, for now, still the Browns. Hunter 5657. What are my thoughts on LSU and Alabama this weekend? Let me tell you what, Hunter. We put out our Week 11 predictions today, and tomorrow, for those of you listening and those of you still on, we will be putting out our Alabama LSU Game of the Week video. Which, if you've been following us for a while, or if you're brand new, you know that we do a Game of the Week video every week, highlighting the biggest game of the upcoming week of college football and giving you more detailed analysis on that game. A little bit of history, a little bit of analysis on both sides of the ball, and the keys for each team. So we have a very detailed analysis for LSU and Alabama coming out for you tomorrow. But let me tell you what, 8 years ago, we had a 9-6 matchup in Bryant-Denny Stadium. Not going to even be close to that this year. More points will be scored. Great quarterbacks. Tua's going to play. It's going to be a great game. It's going to be a great game. This one might live up to be one of the game of the centuries. All right, let's see what else we've got here on the chat. Anybody else that we have on here? So Johnny Bays, you're saying if you beat a team, put them ahead, that's lazy. I think there is something to be said for head-to-head. I think there is something to be said for owning that head-to-head tiebreaker. Now, certainly not the case if you have a 4-loss team that upsets a 2-loss team, to be ranked ahead of them. That's not how it should work. But if the teams are very similar, you look at a case like Florida and Auburn. I don't know which one you're referring to, but you look at a case like Florida and Auburn. Auburn should not be ranked above Florida because Florida defeated Auburn. And they beat them by 11. It wasn't like a 2-point game. It was an 11-point game. So I think head-to-head among similar teams with similar records, with similar styles and similar talent, then head-to-head and ranking that team above that team is justified. I believe it's fully justified. Josh Pruitt, that's a nice jacket you're wearing. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. We went casual today, like we probably will do on many, many Tuesdays when we do these rankings. Still tons of comments about Baylor. I'm sure that's something that's going to be addressed everywhere tonight. Emperor of Rome, you think LSU is going to beat Alabama, and I commend you for that as an Alabama fan to look at it from a non-biased point of view and think that LSU will win. I commend you for that. I applaud you for that because it's very hard to kind of put biasness aside. But I don't think they will. I think Alabama does win. Any LSU fans out there, I'm sure you don't want to hear that, but I like Alabama in a very, very close one. I think a lot of people have Bama winning in dominating fashion because they've won 6 of the past 8 by double digits. But once again, what happened last year, what happened 2 years ago, what happened 8 years ago, the last time LSU beat Alabama, that's all in the past. You can't hold on to the past. You got to let it go. And so I like Alabama in this one in a very, very close one. I think they own a slight edge defensively, and I think home field advantage plays a bigger role than people think in a game like this. Of course, more detailed analysis on that coming out tomorrow. Josh Brewer, that's a nice logo you got in the background. Who designed it? I'll let you try to figure that one out for yourself. All right, so we got Augustus Caesar here. I like this. Well, first off, before I even address your question, Augustus, Dontron Plays, thank you so much for that, by the way. Obviously, to everybody, once again, Super Chat is still on, but Dontron, I appreciate that more than you know. Once again, every bit counts. I don't care what the amount is. Every bit counts, and it does more because it helps us at the channel and obviously shows that you guys are enjoying our content and appreciate our content, and therefore it means a lot to us. When we get little super chat donations like that, and we get comments from you guys, it's a reason that we keep going, that we keep plugging along, and makes us love our job even more, and makes us want to continue to produce content for you guys. So Dontron, you're awesome. Thank you so much for that. Once again, every bit counts, and that means a whole lot for us. All right, so I'm going through Augustus Caesar. If Auburn beats Oregon, Georgia, and Alabama, they deserve to get in, but it won't happen. Already beat Oregon, but I don't think they beat Georgia and Alabama. There's a chance they could beat one, and I would say it's more likely going to be Georgia than Alabama, just right now. But yeah, if they beat all 3 of them, and Oregon wins the Pac-12, Alabama or Auburn would have 2 quality losses to Florida and LSU, a win over the Pac-12 champion, and a win over Georgia and Alabama. They would be in major consideration to get into the college football playoff. And very similar to what we had a couple years ago when Georgia and Auburn met in the SEC championship game. Auburn was a 2-loss team, having fallen to, I believe it was Clemson and LSU. They were still playing in the SEC title game, and had they beaten Georgia, would have gone to the college football playoff. The difference there is that Auburn only had 1 conference loss because the loss to Clemson was out of conference. If they were to lose to, if they lost to another team, 2 conference losses probably wouldn't have gotten them into the SEC championship game. So that's something that the committee would have to figure out for themselves as well, which of course is what makes these ranking shows and what makes the committee so frustrating, but also so exciting and so interesting for us as fans and analysts, trying to figure out what their train of thought was, what their thought process was, and why these rankings are the way they are. Egg with 10,000 subs. If Minnesota beats Penn State, do I think they will be top 10? Well, looking at this, Mr. Egg, they are number 17 in the country right now, based on these new rankings. If they beat the number 4 team in the country, judging from the way the playoff committee has, set the precedent here, I don't see any way how Minnesota cracks the top 10. Judging from the way the playoff committee has established what they expect and what their expectations are and what a win means and what a quality win means, hell, Minnesota would probably just rise from 17th to 15th. Well, the way it's going. But no, more than likely Minnesota would probably rise from 17th to 11th, somewhere around there. We'll have a lot of shakeups, obviously, after week 11. So there's a chance they could crack the top 10. But right now, I don't believe that Minnesota will beat Penn State. It could happen, and if it does, it will drastically shake up the playoff race, drastically shape up these rankings. But I just don't see it happening right now. Hybridus, I think that's what it says. Yeah, at this very moment, which group of 5 team is the best right now? I would have to say Memphis. I would have to say that title would go to Memphis. Even though Cincinnati is above them right now in these rankings, Memphis has impressed me the most. They've impressed me the most offensively. They have a win against a solid – I say solid. They have a win against Ole Miss in the regular season back in the season opener. They beat SMU. Their only loss came to a Temple team by 2 points, a Temple team that usually has a very strong defense, has had a strong defense this year. And Cincinnati, not to take anything away from them, they've looked great. They beat UCF. They beat Marshall by a lot, a solid team out of the Conference USA. Their lone loss to Ohio State. You can't take anything away from them. You can't blame Cincinnati for that loss. But they just narrowly escaped Eastern Carolina in overtime, and that concerns me a little bit. Memphis, with their home win over SMU, finally showing that Mike Norvell could beat not necessarily an elite team, but a ranked team in a big-time moment. That did a lot for me. That showed a lot for me. I still would have Cincinnati above Memphis right now, based on everything. But I do think right now, if they were to meet right now, I like Memphis in that game. Looking through the rest of these comments here, guys. Try not to forget about anybody. Emperor of Rome, you have Baylor ranked so high because you believe they would beat all but the 4 teams you have ranked above them, which of course would be Penn State, Alabama, LSU, and Ohio State. And I respect that. I wholeheartedly respect that. When their offense is clicking on all cylinders, then I do think they could beat a team like Oregon. I think they could beat a team like Utah. They could beat a team like Florida. They could beat a team like Auburn. I think they could maybe beat Georgia. I don't know about Clemson yet. Clemson seems to be really hitting their stride right now, even though it's against weaker opponents. Watching what they did the first half of the season, what they've been doing the second half of the season, it looks like 2 completely different teams. But when Baylor's offense is clicking on all cylinders, we already know they have a much better defense than Art Briles really had. But Art Briles had a more potent offense when he was there, but Matt Rule is kind of trying to find that balance, and he's doing a phenomenal job of that. Obviously paying off for him in a big way, even though it should be paying off in a bigger way than we have right now. Penn State fan 26. Are you happy with where Penn State is? Absolutely. I am. I think that is a great place for Penn State right now. I have no discrepancies with that. They're in the top 4. I had them at number 5, but jumping Clemson, I'm fine with that. I don't think Penn State deserves to be over Alabama, LSU, or Ohio State, but if the season were to end right now, they're making the college football playoff, and they deserve it. So, yeah, I'm totally fine with that. I hope you are. I'm sure you are happy with that as well. I know I definitely would be pleased with the spot that Penn State has been given today. All right. Let's see what else I'm missing here. Make sure I'm not missing any other comments here. So much discussion. I'm loving every little bit of it. Every little bit of it. Cole Converse, how far upstream does the boat row in the rankings if Minnesota beats Penn State on Saturday? Which we kind of already addressed that a second ago. I think they rise from number 17 to about number 11. Judging from the way that the committee is ranking these teams, it seems to me that they don't care enough. It seems that it's pretty lazy to me. So I could see them rising from 17th to 11th, maybe 17th to 10th, but no higher than that. No higher than that. So very interesting stuff there. Legalized quack. The Pac-12 outside of Oregon has begun to cannibalize itself. And you're exactly right. That was the case back in like week 4 or week 5. You had California as the lone undefeated team in the Pac-12. And they got beat by Arizona State in an upset. I mean, everybody was just beating themselves up. But things have kind of finally started to settle down. The cannibalization would have been even worse had Oregon or Utah or both lost to USC and Washington this past weekend. And then you could have guaranteed a Pac-12 team would not get into the college football playoff had they both lost. But I like Oregon and Utah where they're at right now. They look to be on a crash course for the Pac-12 championship game versus each other. And in a sense, that could be a college football playoff play-in game. Because like we said, we know Penn State or Ohio State is going to lose. We know Alabama or LSU is going to lose. And not saying that the loser of those games are eliminated from playoff contention, But if Oregon and Utah continue to win, they're going to be in the exact same boat with those teams that we just mentioned as a one-loss team. And unlike maybe one of those teams, Oregon or Utah could have a conference championship to their name. And you know how crazy the committee goes over conference championships. So looking through the rest of these comments here. Michael Buck, am I ready for NCAA football to make a comeback? Absolutely. Absolutely, guys. I mean, that's obviously something that we can address at a later date since we're mostly trying to focus on these rankings here. But I'm ecstatic for NCAA because it's going to happen. We know it's going to happen. Now the fact that players are not going to get paid, something that I kind of agree with, kind of don't, more leaning towards the don't. But if it means that I get to get my NCAA football games back, then all right, so be it. So be it, because those games were so amazing. And now with the technology and the just change in graphics and game systems that we have, EA or whoever produces the video game is going to do a phenomenal job. So absolutely, I'm ready for it. And I think the entire country has been waiting for this moment to finally get an NCAA video game back for the first time in over 6 years. Michael Buck trying to kill me over here, thinking a strobe light would really liven up the videos. If you guys have any suggestions on how to improve the videos, please let me know. Although I don't think a strobe light would do that. Might cause some horrible medical problems for myself and maybe for our viewers as well. All right, so wrapping up the comments here, we are nearing the end here. Michael Buck, you get a wrench by your name by being a loyal viewer, commenter, and fan of the Gridiron Expert, much like Comic Dude 45 and Emperor Rome have been for not just a year, but for many years now, as we are approaching the, hard to believe, 3-year anniversary of all the work here at the Gridiron Expert. So talk to me, Michael, and we might be able to arrange that for you. But Emperor Rome and Comic Dude doing phenomenal jobs, as they've been for a while now, as moderators of these live streams. Emperor of Rome. I like these questions. I love these questions here. Most overrated team in the rankings, as in the team that is ranked too high. When you're looking at it, guys, and Emperor of Rome, I'm looking at my rankings right here, so I can tell you just compared to how I truly believe. I think that Wisconsin is ranked too high. I think Auburn is ranked slightly too high. Certainly, once again, should not be above Baylor. And I think Kansas State is ranked a little too high as well. And my reasoning for those is I'm looking at Wisconsin. They put them at number 13. I guess the committee just decided to totally disregard the loss to Illinois as 30-point favorites and the 31-point blowout to Ohio State. I guess the committee is just pretending that didn't happen. And so we're going to rank Wisconsin above. And this is a chance where I actually think Minnesota should be ranked above Wisconsin, an undefeated team who actually was able to beat Illinois. So, yeah, I have an issue with that. Wisconsin should certainly not be number 13 in the country. Auburn should not be number 11. I have them down at number 13, so not a huge discrepancy there. And then Kansas State I have at 16, or I had at 21. Maybe I should have cracked them inside the top 20, but I think 16th over the likes of Minnesota, Iowa, maybe even Wake Forest is just a little too high right now. One win, as great as it was for Kansas State, and all the credit in the world to them and what Chris Klieman's doing. I don't think anybody saw them being at 6-2 at this point in the season right now, but one win does not make you a god. One win does not make you an elite team in the country. If that was the case, then South Carolina and Illinois should be ranked in the top 25 right now, and they're not, for good reason. So, and I'm not trying to compare Kansas State to South Carolina and Illinois. Obviously, drastic changes in records, drastic changes in wins and losses, but I just don't think Kansas State should be up there right now. So those are my three teams I think are just ranked a little too high as of right now, teams that shouldn't be there. I know Emperor of Rome very frustrated with Ohio State, but don't worry. College football, especially November, is just now getting started. Just now getting started. Well, look at that. I didn't even see that we had a spammer. Wow, Trampoline Wrestling Federation. Holy cow. Well, and once again, I've just been so caught up. Once again, thank you to, I see in Rome said, Comic Dude, you do the honors. And that's why we have fantastic moderators to kick the spammers. So thank you guys very, very much for that. Didn't even catch it. Haven't even been paying attention to it. So thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for that. All right, as we wrap up this live stream, Comic Dude 45. Yes, I did. I meant to mention that to you, or address that with you. First off, congratulations. For those of you that don't know, Comic Dude 45, and if you're okay with me addressing this, is a member of the Rutgers Scarlet Knight Marching Band, and the Rutgers Scarlet Knight Marching Band performed last night on Monday Night Football between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants. So I'm sure that was not just an honor, but an amazing experience. I mean, you're playing in front of thousands and thousands of people. I get you've done that before at collegiate games, but to do that on a national stage, Monday Night Football, in front of what people would say is America's team with the Dallas Cowboys, that's a phenomenal opportunity. So I don't know how much you've gotten to travel this year. I know you were hoping to go to a couple of these big-time road games, but I know that's a huge honor as well and a great opportunity. So congratulations on that. I truly hope you enjoyed it, because that is pretty dang awesome. That's pretty dang. And I did catch that a little bit of that on TV last night during halftime. So congratulations. That is awesome. All right, so taking a look at this, wrapping things up here. Always challenges Ohio State's underrated. How can they be underrated? They're the number one team in the country. How much higher can you get? Ohio State's number one. They're the best in the business, according to the playoff committee. Don't agree with them. Think they should be two. But, they're number one, and we can't argue that right now. So Ohio State can't go any higher. They're looking very solid right now. Number one team in the country. Once again, as I have the most sound team both offensively and defensively. No doubt in my mind. And I'm sure, for Comic Dude 45, while you were there relaying this to Michael Buck's question, the cat at the Cowboys game, I'm sure that was definitely something, a sight to see. It was a sight for me to see on TV, hearing the crowd just cheering for that cat to get in the end zone. So I'm sure to be there in person was pretty cool too. So Michael Buck, phenomenal performance. I think the NFL said he had 117 rushing yards and a touchdown last night. So that's pretty dang good for a rookie that just kind of rushed onto the field out of nowhere. Fireball Deester? Who's Baylor playing in a New Year's Six bowl game? Well, assuming Baylor gets to a New Year's Six bowl game, I can see them making the Cotton Bowl potentially, or the Sugar Bowl. If they make the Sugar Bowl, they're going to be playing an SEC team, assuming that they don't make the playoff and assuming that Oklahoma is not the Big 12 champion. So if they make the Sugar Bowl, there's a chance they could play a team like Auburn or a team like Georgia. And I think both of those would be phenomenal matchups down in New Orleans. So you have that. If they made the Cotton Bowl down in Texas, more than likely would play a group of 5 team. So you might be, or an independent. So you can have Baylor, Notre Dame, which I think would be interesting. You could have Baylor versus Cincinnati or Memphis, whoever that group of 5 team is that comes out for the New Year's Six bowl game. So any of those matchups I think would be great for the Bears. Just getting to a New Year's Six bowl game period needs to be the goal and would just be amazing for Baylor. And I think they are on track to do that, sitting at 8-0. But if you're a Baylor guy, watch out for TCU this Saturday. On the road, a TCU team that, lost to Oklahoma State, but did beat Texas. They're at home. You never underestimate Gary Patterson. Y'all know that. It scares me a little bit. It does scare me a little bit. So watch out if you're a Baylor fan. TCU is a trap game if I've ever seen one, especially with the games against Oklahoma and Texas coming up. All right, let's take a look here. Josh Pruitt, my best stream ever. I don't know if I'd go that far. It's definitely been the most controversial stream ever, the most rant-filled stream ever. Don't know about the best, though. I think I'd let that for the rest of the fans to decide. As I continue to promote my body armor here. looking through the rest. We're wrapping things up, guys. And once again, definitely want to appreciate all of you guys for joining the live stream. Best stream ever, Josh, in the sense that we have had some phenomenal viewership and some phenomenal just interaction, comments, questions, discussion. This is what it's all about. This is what it's all about. I appreciate every single one of you. I appreciate those that have supported through the super chats and the ones that have joined us tonight. So thank you all once again. Looking through the final bit of these questions here. Johnny Bays is exactly right. Make sure to like that picture. Or like this video, guys. Make sure to like the videos. We are nearing the end here. But, dude, hopefully Rutgers sparks pandemonium on November 16th against the #1 Buckeyes. Man, could you imagine? Could you imagine? That would just be amazing. That'd be truly unbelievable. Crazy things have happened. Any given Saturday, it's the beauty of college football. Hunter Shin, the Pac-12 champion, should get in. Can't guarantee it, but should get in, whether that be Oregon or Utah, assuming both are a one-loss team. So that's going to be ultimately the goal here. So the winner of the Pac-12, their one-loss team between Oregon and Utah, should get in the college football playoff, in my opinion. But that, of course, depends on who's in there with them. Who are the other one-loss teams? Because Alabama or LSU will certainly be one. And they have a very strong case to get in there as well. George Stice, it has been too long, and we're super glad to see you, although, unfortunately, we're coming to an end. We are coming to an end here on this live stream, and make sure you catch it. George, I know you're always wanting to catch these live streams. I will tell you what, we're going to have one every Tuesday night. Every Tuesday night, breaking down the college football playoff rankings. This is the first one and the first of many. So, sorry that we're about to close things off and end, but thank you for joining us. It's been way too long. Glad to see you back. Glad to talk to you, and we hope to see you every Tuesday as well. Cole Converse, is the American better than the ACC? My opinion, yeah. Just look at these rankings. You got, what, four American Athletic Conference teams in here? How many ACC you got? 2? Wake Forest and Clemson? I know you don't have to base it solely off of rankings, but based on level of competition, no doubt in my mind that the American is better than the ACC this season. And, well, maybe you can start considering a Power 6 conference. Last question, LA Hawks, thoughts on Iowa, who plays Wisconsin this week? I know you're a Hawkeyes fan. I know you like Iowa. Listen, I like Wisconsin in this game, but I expect it to be super, super low scoring. 2 elite defenses in this one. Home field advantage plays a huge role, but I tell you what, man. I tell you what, LA Hawks, I can almost guarantee you will shut down Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor could not get anything going against Ohio State in that run defense, and Iowa has a very solid and similar run defense to the Buckeyes. Even though it's at home, I don't see Wisconsin getting much on the ground. But I do think that Iowa will struggle on the road at Camp Randall Stadium, even though they're hungry to defeat Wisconsin here, even though they're hungry to defeat them after a blowout loss last year. I think Jack Cohn finds a way to get the job done. I think Wisconsin's defense steps up just a little bit, gets a slight edge over Iowa in this one, wins a very close defensive battle at home over the Hawkeyes. And with that win, Wisconsin and Minnesota are in a tight race to see who wins the Big Ten West. I know that's probably not what you want to hear, but expect it to be low scoring. In a game that low scoring, one turnover can change it. Iowa forces a quick turnover or turnover and converts just a little bit of points out of it, whether it's a field goal or a touchdown. That could be the difference maker in this game. So don't count the Hawkeyes out, but I like Wisconsin more in this game right now. George Stites, clear your schedule for Tuesday nights, and that's how we'll close it, guys. Make sure you clear your schedule for Tuesday nights, because I thought this was amazing. I thought it was an absolute blast. We had great viewership. We had a crazy first rankings from the College Football Playoff Committee, an unbelievable College Football Playoff Committee rankings. Horrible, embarrassing, if you ask me. Hopefully, they will finally start thinking straight. We'll have a better set of rankings next Tuesday. We've got a huge Week 11 coming up, guys. If you haven't seen our Week 11 predictions, check them out. They're already up here on YouTube. We got Game of the Week analysis coming your way. We've got top 5 Alabama LSU video or games coming your way. Plenty more live streams coming your way over the rest of the season. We're the second week of November. We've still got a lot of ball left to be played. So you're not going to want to miss any of it. Guys, thank you so much for joining us, all of you. Thank you for all the likes. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for all the discussion. Johnny Bays, Emperor of Rome. Josh Pruitt, I guess, who's ready for this to end. But Johnny Bays, Emperor of Rome, Comic Dude 45, LA Hawks, Ryan McCormick, Hunter Shin, everybody else, Von Hook, Mark TR. So good to see you guys. Once again, we'll see you on next Tuesday. Enjoy your week of college football. Michael Buck as well. How could I forget? Enjoy your week of college football. Enjoy the rest of your night, and we will see you next Tuesday.